Hello, everybody, and welcome to Roger's Real-Time Talkshow event. I'm Roger Hanson, your host. Today, I am here with my co-host Mark Edworthy and my brother Robert Hanson. Welcome, guys, to the panel.
Yeah,
Now,
cheers.
we were talking last week, and yeah, I'll have a little bit of Hume in this episode, but I'm gonna hold off on a lot of the conservative stuff because I forgot last week that I've been going in between sociology and religion, which I can put a little bit of Hume into this one, but I want to kind of get into the religious aspects of what's been happening with sociology and the topic of the Frankfurt School before we go on to that. Or is it? I wanted to mention that before we got started. So, are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, well, okay. Carry on.
Yeah.
Because, like, I know I've been bringing up the whole atheist part of this, and it hasn't been making so much sense up to this point, but it will start clicking once we get through this. This is actually where you'll start understanding where I'm coming from with where I'm doing this. Now, I want to also point out that I started doing this research well over 10 years ago. It had to be longer even that I've done this stuff. And some of the information or the older information that I had was pretty critical on both sides. I was telling Mark that before we started the show. I had a pretty bad attitude when it came not only to freaking atheism, but also when it came to religion. So I was kind of stuck in between it. So what I did is I went and pulled up my information that I had, but then I reviewed it and made it to where it was a little bit more or a lot more unbiased. You know what I mean? Because I had some pretty interesting ways of looking at things. Now, back whenever I was first doing this, we actually had a pretty good group going on Facebook when it was a decent platform where Christians and atheists could actually get together and actually have a intellectual conversation. So I took notes, and that was back when Facebook had notes, which they got rid of, and that pissed me off because a lot of information was lost. But I was able to blog some of it, and I use that to make these talking points. So, and I cleaned it up here recently. So, and when I say I don't think this is evil and I don't think this is good, I'm just pointing the facts out to you. That's all I'm doing. All right, that is it. I'm not trying to say freaking atheism is bad. I'm not trying to say freaking religion is bad. I'm just giving you information that I've gathered up through the years pertaining to this subject. Okay, fair.
Carry on.
Okay, I'll take that as a yes from Mark Edworthy. So.
Yeah.
Now, what I do want to ask Robert and Mark and whoever decides to come in, just be respectful for one another. No mudslinging. Let's not turn this into a Donald Trump freaking episode. Okay, let's keep it clean. Have a serious conversation about this stuff because this is stuff that does need to be talked about, but it's not being talked about the way it needs to be talked about in a serious way. Because these are very controversial topics for even today. And this is stuff that I was making notes of 10, 15 years ago. So this is something that could really help people when it comes to perspective about how things really hasn't changed over time. You know what I mean? It just stayed the same. So.
Well, and everything.
Yeah. So this is a really important piece that I don't think that we've given enough attention to be honest. Okay, there's the whole thing between the conservative intellectual tradition, which I don't think a lot of people are aware of. Like, have you ever heard of the conservative intellectual tradition, Mark? So I know your tradition.
Maybe under a different name, but I get the idea.
Okay, so there's basically a conservative intellectual tradition that's running through the development of sociology and social theory. Okay,
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
that if we bring that up in the topics tonight, that'll kind of make the discussion more balanced. Okay,
Okay.
so with this episode, we're going to have to think about three things that are actually key that we to the subject that we need to distinguish between. Okay, and that's the first one is people who were politically conservative. We have to distinguish between that. We have to distinguish between people whose ideas were influential in sociology. And then we also have to distinguish people who were themselves sociologists. Okay. Now,
Okay. Yeah.
a lot of those categories overlap, but they aren't identical at all. And Hume is, in my opinion, I think that he's the perfect starting point. But a lot of people would probably find that interesting. You know what I'm saying? Because Hume himself predates sociology. If you check him out, you'll find out that he predates sociology.
What year?
This
Year was he alive?
he would have been, I believe, in the 1700s. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but as a formal academic discipline, Hume's teachings predates sociology. I do want to make that clear. So understand that I'm not calling him a sociologist, but his thinking about like the social order, uh, convention, institutions, and human nature, especially whenever he writes about human nature, that's something that's key to this too. And government combined, that's very relevant in a lot of the later social theory that was coming out. So that's something that I wanted to say. Okay, now Hume's himself rejected the idea that government necessarily originated from like explicit social contract. He didn't agree with that. Instead, he developed an evolutionary account, where political authorities and social conventions develop historically. You know what I mean? So
what do you mean?
he believed that they developed out of their history, their culture, their traditions. Like it just developed naturally.
Okay, like the problems from their culture and like different outlooks
No, not really.
about like when you break or you steal.
He believed that laws were created because of the situations that took place in the past and stuff that's taken place at the time. He didn't believe that like laws should be enforced that had absolutely nothing to do with that freaking area if it wasn't an issue.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you're living in a small town with barely no crime, nobody's stealing candy from the candy store, nothing like that. There shouldn't be laws freaking saying that you need to freaking watch the candy store because freaking people will steal candy.
Right. In this country, yeah, it goes down to the US entrapment laws, doesn't it? How the FBI and the police services in the US can, whereas entrapment is illegal in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Now Hume's developed or Hume's actually he saw government like as a continuing tension between the authorities and liberty, with a stable government requiring like a balance between them. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So basically, what Hume asks is this. So he says, how does a society become orderly when nobody sat down and consciously designed the entire system? So that's what I want to ask you guys first. How does a society become orderly when nobody sat down and consciously designed the entire system?
An evolution. Can a society? Yeah, society can grow naturally, can't it?
Yeah.
Evolutionary sort of thing.
But at the same time,
He's not
Hey.
asking that though, see. He says, how does a society become orderly when nobody sat down and consciously designed the entire system?
by what do you call it? You live way you want without the rules or breaking the law.
No, I think Mark is more in line with what's going on here because, like, his answer usually points towards like custom. He's big on convention. He's big on habit, interest.
I'm not big on habit, but depends on habit.
And again, I want to take it back to the whole historical development. Like, he believed that like your laws should be set up because of the historical development within your community.
Yeah.
You know.
It's very.
Oh, I thought I said that.
No, you didn't. You didn't. You're like on the brink of talking about serial killers.
You're the one bringing
Hey,
them
I can relate. I can relate.
he just told me like you're the one bringing it up. But yeah.
No, what I was referring to is if for any group that don't want to live by the rules, they in their own mind have to live like they don't want to create the situation, then they won't.
All right, that's valid. I agree. Now the thing is like that idea that he's coming up is very different from the idea that society can just simply redesign. It can be like redesigned from scratch. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
According to a freaking like a rational, I guess you could say, blueprint. You know what I mean? Just
Okay,
we can just
Fabian, very Fabian.
Right, he didn't believe that. You know, he didn't believe that freaking, you know, you could just come in and just redesign the entire freaking way of society according to like some kind of a blueprint that was written down.
Yeah. Especially we have to stop and think. How was they were before that?
Now, understand this is when you hear this, you will think that frickin' Hume's is a conservative, but let me point something out about Hume's, okay? If you label Hume's as a freaking conservative, you are oversimplifying him. This is just a brief idea of what kind of thinking Hume's had, okay? Now, have you guys ever heard of Edmund Burke?
Rings a bell.
Okay. Burke Society? You never heard of the Burke Society?
Maybe. Edmund Burke sounds familiar.
Now, Edmund Burke isn't a sociologist either, but he becomes really, really important to the conservative tradition that influenced later social thought as well. Okay. Now, Burke's basic objection was to the idea that you can look at society, decide what it was, not decide that it was irrational or unjust, and then just simply rebuild it according to and like any abstract theory. He was against that.
Okay.
So his concern was that society contains enormous amounts of accumulated knowledge that aren't written down anymore, and that would go according to like your traditions, your customs, your institutions. It would also involve family relationships. He went into religious practices. There was some stuff that he talked about that had to do with local associations or social expectations. You know what I mean? Things of that nature. So people know how these things work without necessarily being able to explain why they work.
Yeah.
So, and I think that that's incredibly relevant when it comes to my argument about social engineering. You know what I mean? So I'm going to be very careful about this, because the one thing is like there's something that was stated from, I believe Burke said it, but he said be very careful about destroying something you don't fully understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's because like a major counter argument to theories that believe society can be deliberately reconstructed, you know, is something that frickin' he believed in, and so did Hume's, and I do believe that. I believe that societies can't be reconstructed according to frickin', you know, whim. That's why I have my issues with France. Whenever I was not, you know, I mean, I know I joke around about that a lot, you know what I mean? But on a serious note, this country has had.
Sorry, France, which period?
That's, yeah, okay. Yeah, 15 constitutions. That's all I gotta say.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay, yeah.
You know,
but they've had a interesting history in the 20th century and 18th, 19th.
You said which period? Let's just add it all together.
Right. I thought you could have been talking about Gaul for online.
There was a guy, he's got a weird name, so I might mess it up, but his name's Tocqueville. Have you ever heard of Alexis de Tocqueville? Huh? This guy, I was told that he was somebody who would be interesting or very useful for my podcast, and I went and I checked him out. And now I did check him out and everything, and I would say that he sits somewhere like between political philosophy and sociology.
Okay.
Now he actually studied American society, and he wasn't like just interested in formal government. He wanted to like understand the associations, the religion. You know, he wanted to learn about the families, local governments, stuff like civil participation and social equality, habits, and then public opinions. And that's what he called the habits of the heart, basically. He actually, I don't know if you've actually heard of that before, but that's what he termed it as.
Okay.
Now, he was somebody that I checked out, and I found out like a a lot of these modern sociology textbooks often refer to him as like an important precursor to sociological theory, even though he wasn't a sociologist in the later professional sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, his concern was actually pretty fascinating because he brought up democracy and how democracy could become tyrannical without necessarily becoming openly authoritarian.
Mhm.
Okay, and he also mentioned that the majority itself could be oppressive, like the majority could be oppressive over the minority or the individual. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think that that's what really stuck out to me. That's directly relevant to what I'm saying when I say who declares what is normal. Every time I ask that, I always ask who gets to decide what is normal.
What is normal?
Yeah, because what is the definition of normal, and what is what is the depth of that?
The thing that the majority agree upon.
No, what I mean is for individuals, what like what is that for individual? Where if you want to know though, in what way do you recognize that in individuals?
Well, I mean,
Know that.
well, I'm talking about like in a social sense. You know, you hear people say, "Oh, well, that's just normal." Well, who gets to decide that? Who
The
gets to decide?
majority. The majority.
You know,
Yeah, but,
It's a very democratic system
no, yeah,
because
but
the
that's one side
majority
of
agree
it.
what normal is.
Yeah, but they don't really know of that group.
well, what's normal to you wouldn't be normal to me,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's why I said the majority.
right?
And you're
And then we get to another guy. His name's Robert Nisbet. You guys heard of Nisbet?
not.
Carry on.
This is probably the person I most want you guys to know about for this project, because Robert Nisbet was actually a professional sociologist. He deliberately developed what could be called a conservative sociology. Okay.
What era is he?
What does that mean?
He was in the 1950s, I believe.
Okay. Oh.
Now his argument was really extraordinary. Now some of sociology's fundamental ideas actually came from the conservative reaction against the French Revolution. Okay. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to realize. And last year, remember when me and you were talking about the French Revolution, Mark?
Yeah.
Neither one of us was really freaking happy about that. Like that was actually that was a pretty screwed up situation. You know, they started out preaching for freedom and the rights of the individual and all that, and the guy that was in charge of the French Revolution ended up being a tyrannical psychopath. You know.
But he got executed under his own system.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It was like that's the one thing I think people should understand, that some of sociology's fundamental ideas actually came from the conservative reaction against the French Revolution. Well, actually, I know that like back in 1952, this is my note that I had. Nisbet did do an American Journal of Sociology article in 1952, so it's right around 1950s. It could have been even into the early or late 40s.
Okay.
And
British, American, Canadian.
don't know. I don't know.
Where
if
was he
Canadian.
based? Where was he at the time?
He most likely, I believe he was an American.
Okay. Yes.
Now, he argued that philosophical conservative was historically a major source of sociology's concern when it came to social groups, status, integration, social functions, disintegration, insecurity, community, authority, and tradition. Now, he specifically traced those ideas through thinkers like Comte and Laplace and into Durkheim. Now, that's important because it completely complicates the simplistic narrative. Okay, so like if you went to say or if you said sociology came from Marxism, the best answer would be no. Okay,
Okay.
because the intellectual ancestry of sociology is a lot more messier. Okay, that's why he was coming at it from. He argued about Durkheim specifically, and what he said there is this. He said Nisbet argued that Durkheim's sociology incorporated concepts that had roots in conservative thought. But here's where we need to be careful. That doesn't mean Durkheim was politically conservative. Okay? Anthony Giddens specifically discussed this issue, and he points out that Durkheim was politically associated with liberal republicanism and Dreyfusard's cause, while he also argued that some of his sociological concepts nevertheless had intellectual roots in the conservative reaction to the French Revolution. And to me, that's a distinction, I think, that will make this a lot more stronger. You know what I mean? So we could say like a thinker can inherit intellectual concepts, but a political tradition without adopting that political tradition wholesale.
Yeah, great.
And that's exactly what happened in a lot of the history when it comes to sociology, you know, and Nisbet goes directly after social engineering. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's important because with Nisbet, he was concerned about the weakening of the intermediate institutions like family, church, community, voluntary associations, and local organizations. And if you look at things today, what are they mostly attacking? Family, the church, the community, and like these voluntary associations. You know what I mean? Like they're going after them, saying that they're freaking horrible institutions that you can't trust, and that's really a bad thing because you know poor people do need freaking food banks.
But they're pushing NGOs onto you, and NGOs are, whilst in most countries, are not really answerable to. They are answerable to the government bodies, but in a lot of situations, they are not in reality answerable.
Yeah, but what happens when all that changes?
Yeah. And he worried that if those institutions weaken, the central state would increasingly occupy the state that these institutions once filled. You know what I mean? And that's where we get into the whole thing of government replacing God. You know, they're wanting to replace God with freaking with government.
The state.
Yeah, with the state.
Government, yeah.
So Now, if you want to read more about him, his book he has a book out, The Quest for Community, and that would actually be
Okay.
that'd actually be an interesting book if you want to do that, because he examined he examined this problem basically when it comes to social engineering.
Find the ISBN number for us.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm in the middle. I can do that in most of the other shows.
Just a note for you.
Yeah, I can put that up and everything, because that is he brings up some pretty good arguments when it comes to that. And later, as a sociologist, believe it or not, he continued to criticize like excessive centralization and social engineering. So now we have an interesting contrast. You know what I mean? One tradition says understand society so that you can identify structures of power and potentially change them. And then you have the conservative sociology tradition that says understand society so that you recognize the fragile institution and traditions that hold it together before you start changing them. You see?
Would the 15th century philosopher that you were talking about earlier be around? I think no, 17th century. Wouldn't it?
You're talking about Bismarck?
No, Adam Locke and John Smith. That's 17th century.
Well, they believed in the contract. They believed in
Well, similar argument.
This gets messier though. You know what I mean? Like sociology is just completely like if you don't sit down and you don't research this stuff, you will not figure it out. You'll fall back to John Locke and Rousseau and all these guys.
Okay.
But like the moment they came up with the term ideology, everything changed.
Okay, the term.
You know what I mean? The moment they came up with that word, man, everything changed. It just.
Hey, Raj, but like, okay, that word, how does it fit with the other ones? You know, like.
Well, see, that's the thing. Ideology is the tool they use. I'm gonna say tool, but I mean, you could easily use it as the weapon they use. Okay.
Let's just think about.
But what it is everybody has beliefs. We believe this. We believe that. We believe this. We believe in God. We don't believe in God. We believe in Allah. We don't believe in Allah. We believe in Buddha. We don't believe. We have all these beliefs. Okay. Now, there's people who are really, really smart who have figured out that they can take what you believe in, turn it into what they call an ideology, and create a movement.
Yeah.
So they can manipulate you according to what you believe.
Like government.
Because they want you to do what they want you to do. I mean, it's not about your religion. It's not about your belief system. It's about them manipulating you into doing what they want you to do. Make sense?
Yeah.
Is that a coffee pot?
No, that's his computer. He's got a highly tuned processor behind him that's freaking using the copier.
Gone nuts.
Yeah. Now, those are two completely different uses of social knowledge, basically. Okay, they're competing traditions within social thought. They're actually competing against one another. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have the Marxist or the critical tradition, which asks who has power. Who benefits from existing institutions, how are inequalities reproduced, how can those structures be changed, Then you have the conservative sociological traditions, which ask what holds society together, why do traditions persist, what happens when institutions collapse, what unintentional consequences can come from radical change, and what happens when centralized governments replace local institutions. Now you also have a third one as well. Okay, that's the liberal tradition, which often asks, how can individual freedoms coexist with social order? How can institutions protect liberty while maintaining stability? And these traditions can actually argue with one another using the same subject matter. And to me, I think that's pretty fascinating. Like they can use the same freaking subject matter and argue with one another.
Yeah.
So
when you were talking about like the politician, Roger, like I can't. You were farther back.
mm-hmm.
Okay, and the thing over there, when you said that, and you could have a splinter group of a different outlook of it, but they're still the same part, but a different splinter group. The outlook might be different.
Well, see, for me, I think the best question that a person should ask is what different philosophies have influenced the way sociology understands society, okay? Because once you ask that, you discover that sociology wasn't formed from one ideological source. It contains liberal, conservative, Marxist, religious. You also have positivists. You've got people who are functionalists, interactionists, critical traditions, and tons of others. And that gives you like this extremely freaking interesting thing that we can turn into another segment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if different ideological traditions can study the same society and reach radically different conclusions about what society needs, how do we distinguish between studying society and trying to reshape it? That's the big question.
Or how can you be part of it? Because the outlook might be different to you, but they might not accept you to be in there.
Well, see, the thing about it is ironic. It's really ironic because Hume, Burke, and Tocqueville and Nesbitt, they give you some of the strongest intellectual tools for like challenging social engineering, and that's without having to pretend that sociology isn't or isn't freaking socialist. You know what I mean? Like you start seeing like this is coming from all directions. This isn't just socialist. And that's something that I really needed to look at. And back when I first started this stuff, that's just something that, because even Mark can tell you, when I was started hanging out with him and them, that's all you ever heard me talk about. I would always blame the socialists, dude. It was socialists. They were the problem. You know what I mean?
Very McCarthy view.
Well, I wasn't that bad. No. What's his name? What was his name? He was the one that was in chat all the time. He was the Mexican guy.
Oh, heck.
Yeah. He was really bad. He honestly thought the United States. Yeah. He honestly thought that freaking the United States was going to freaking try to take power over Mexico. And I was like, dude, nobody in the world wants to freaking rule Mexico. It's like that is the last country anybody wants to be a ruler of, you know?
I don't know.
Your debt would freaking, I mean, your government debt would just freaking fall through the floor if you had to freaking rule.
Well,
over
that's
the world.
already happening anyway in both of our countries anyway, so.
So I guess
Well,
I guess the best thing now, since we've covered these guys, is to ask the new question. You guys want to hear it? What happens when God is removed?
What God as in a natural deity or the idea of God?
The idea.
You get to determine who God
Well-
is. What happens when you get to determine
Yeah.
it? Okay.
What we call right and wrong to be misunderstood then. And from compassion to thinking of yourself will be gone, or misunderstood less of it.
Okay. So who shapes the individual?
The situation.
Okay. Somebody's getting some back.
Yeah, I'm noticing some echo. Yeah.
Oh, there's Bob Dub. Hey, Bob Dub.
Hey, did I upset your audio? I can
Yeah,
mute.
there's an echo going on.
You just have an echo. That's all it is. Do you have something playing in the background? Like, do you have the video playing? If you do, mute that. Then you'd be.
No, I don't have anything playing, but I'm remoting into my computer and
Okay,
using
you
my
sound-
laptop.
You sound
Okay.
good, actually. Now you do. Whatever you
that's-
did, you fixed it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So we're actually getting to the part where we're talking about. We're actually talking about sociology, and we came to a question. We said, "What happens when God is removed?" So we just
What
finished
happens to what?
to society.
To society. Okay.
We just went over Hume and Burke and Nisbet. So
Okay.
that's kind of what we're getting into. And I just asked Robert who shapes the individual.
There, it goes back.
It's still doing that whole echo. You're muted out, Robert.
Yeah, I know, but that's my point. I can hear you. I hear me through your earphone.
Well, that's not good. So unmute.
Mhm.
Unmute.
Okay. Well, what I was referring to is that when God's not in the picture, you look at the way things are, how certain things we do not do as civilization, cause of the ideal of God. Everything about that God, how we put just not the ideal, but we live by it too. And if you do not, if you lose the ideal of God and the comprehension of what is God and everything about it, then what do you have? And how does people, if they have no idea, they don't have no fear of it no more. Look at what could be the repercussions of that ideal. There's no more God, so we don't have to obey by the law of God, mentally or physically.
Okay, so let's open that up. What do you think about that, Mark and Bob?
Say that again.
What do you think about what Robert just said right there?
I didn't catch a lot of it, I'm afraid to say.
Oh, how about you, Bob Dub?
I think that what he says is right. You lose your focus. You lose your compass. We don't know what God is. We don't know what God is in Godland. But we know in the human brain that the idea of God is the idea of something that we want to try and achieve, some sort of ideal or some sort of something we aim for. So if you take that idea away from people, something to aim for, something perfect to aim for, then you've taken away the goal of goodness. And I think then you will get what we've got now: division, distrust, misery, and conflict and chaos. That's just my off the top of my head thoughts.
I'm glad you said that, because this is actually where we get into the flesh of where we're bringing religion into sociology and what their actual attempts were, because this is where you come into the second most important question that start this out, and it is, who has the authority to shape society? Okay, I've been asking.
The people, democracy.
Yeah, the third mind, the collective unconscious.
Yeah.
All of us operating together somehow.
Yeah. Because what could happen is this: we recognize how your life is turning out good by the simple things that you do and how you represent you and what you do. That will make other people stand up and realize, okay, this how this person lives, mindset, and everything about her. Other people will pay attention and understand that type of life that she has. If they like that type or not, and if they do, they'll watch her and understand and want to live that type of life, mentally and physically.
Okay, so this actually gets us into the third one. This is where it really comes together. Okay, I'm going to ask you this third question: what happens to the source of moral authority when someone rejects God?
Well, it really goes bad real fast, because without moral support in God, then what do you have? Your outlook of
No, hold on right there. Now you're jumping to the conclusion that you don't have morals if you don't believe in God. So is that what you're saying? You're saying that if you don't believe in God, you're a moralist person?
No. I'm saying if you do not do not feel you do not listen to, if you don't believe in that, you have no morals about anything about God. Okay.
So let me read this question again. What happens to the source of moral authority when God, or when someone rejects God? So what happens to the source of moral authority when someone rejects God? What happens?
Well, first, where does the source come from? People like to
I think.
Oh, sorry, Bob.
Sorry, I was going to say that I think that everybody has a need for moral authority. And if you don't have that authority as being something spiritual, something outside you, then you will look for something in the world to put it on. So you'll put it onto the government, or you'll put it onto whatever, like an ideology even.
Mm.
Because there's sort of a yearning in your brain to have all these ideas in neat files. And if your brain doesn't have that, doesn't have a structure to believe in, then it will put anything in there in that vacuum, I think.
And we call them the groups like the ones that believe in that coming to Earth, and they all, because they believe in.
Okay, before you start getting into your societies and stuff, let me kind of take you into a little bit more reality thing about, because we don't need to be talking about serial killers and stuff. Okay, before you go there, let's talk about religion itself as a social institution, okay? Because it's really easy to freaking talk about freaking people who believed in aliens and committed suicide and blame it, use that as an example. But let's just look at religion as itself being a social institution, okay? So religion by itself can function as a source of moral teachings. It's a source of social norms. It's a community. It's an institution. It's a mechanism of socialization. It's a source of identity, a source of authority, and it's also a framework for understanding human existence. So religion belongs directly inside our sociology discussion, okay? So this isn't outside of society. It's one of the institutions that help construct society. All right. So you have to look at. Let's not look at those people that freaking committed suicide because they were in a cult. You know what I mean? Let's look at like religion as being a part of freaking the society that we have. That actually it's an institution that actually helps construct society. You know what I mean?
In what part?
People, there's people out there who can't live without church. They have mental illnesses, they have social problems, they have issues that they can't freaking take care of them on their own, and they need to go to church so that they have somebody who's there to guide them because they're lost.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I think that what church is there are 4 things that happen at church. This is from my history, my experience in the Episcopalian Church, which isn't even the Episcopalian Church. It's the Anglican Church of Southern Africa. But in the service that we had, there were 4 things that you did. The first thing you did was you said prayers to say sorry. You knelt down on the floor. You said, I'm sorry that I did that. I'm sorry I was mean. I'm blah, blah, blah. And you asked to be forgiven. And then the priest says, all those things that you did, they're over. God forgives you. It's gone. And then you have the second part where the priest reads a story and tells you, God says this, God says that. This is how to be a good person. You should try hard. Blah, blah. That's the second part. Then the third part, we all got together and we practiced the ritual of pretending to share a meal together by having a sip of wine and having a piece of bread. We acted out as if we were all commonly eating food together as one family. And then after that, there's the fourth part where the priest says to you, go off and do your best this week. And off you go. And that little ritual of sort of human family is something that prevents a lot of crime, a lot of murder, a lot of mistakes. So it's not always about what you think God is, but sometimes it's what about what people need. People need to be forgiven. People need to be encouraged. People need to feel that they have a whole crowd of people around them looking out for them.
It's good. Now this is the part where we bring in the atheism part of it, because like I was telling everybody before you came in, Bob Dub, back whenever I first started getting into all this stuff, I remember Facebook back in like the early 2000s where I was in groups that where atheists and Christians could actually come in and have like intelligent conversations about their differences, and it was pretty cool because they even had notepad on Facebook at the time, so I was always taking notes. And the sad part is that got taken out and I lost a lot of it, but I was lucky enough to blog some of it, and I went through it and kind of made it a little bit more unbiased a lot more unbiased than what it was. And I actually took a lot of those comments that what a lot of the atheist arguments were, and I put it in the blog. So I retained that and kept it in here. And this is where we're going to start kind of going through some of the arguments they gave. And what you just said right there was a really good kind of board, I guess a diving board or whatever you want to call it, to get into this. But the atheist argument that was in my material before, it essentially said that you don't need God to be moral. And to me, I think that's an important argument to take seriously. That's not something we should just simply dismiss, because an atheist can absolutely be a moral person, and an atheist can develop a coherent ethical system as well, just like a religious person can behave immoral. So for me, I believe that religious belief equals morality, and or I but it can also be immoral. It just depends on how you do things, you know what I'm saying? Just like an atheist can be moral or immoral, it just depends on how they do it. So that needs to be like acknowledged if I'm going to like present this fairly, you know what I mean?
Well, but it's your mindset too. They say where you live at represents your ideals on certain things.
See, I kind of have issues with that too, because that's also a sociology thing. Like, people are trying to say that because you were born and raised in a Muslim community that you were going to naturally become a Muslim. And that's not the truth. There's plenty of Christians in the Muslim world, and vice versa. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the issues that I do have an issue.
I think that there's a lot of scientific evidence that says that how you think when you're an adult is set in your brain by the time you're 7 years old. So I do think that your family and your early influences have a lot of responsibility, if you like, for what you believe when you're an adult. But I also think you're right, Roger, when you say you've got free choice at any stage. When you get to the place where, I think that maybe Dad was wrong when he said that we should all put on green trousers and dance around the mulberry bush. Maybe I don't need to do that. You're an adult. You don't need to slavishly believe things that were stories for children. But the intention behind things, usually with normal people, the intention behind things is to live a good life. Whatever story you put around that. Yeah.
Yeah. as well too. And when people, when you recognize certain people need certain like help, atheist or not, it tells you if you're willing to be there. That's like you said, your way of thinking. You know, if you want to be there for the person, you'll be there. You know, that's your own way of wanting it, if you do or not. Not someone feed you other types of ideals to make you react in the way that the way they would want you to.
So the thing with me is like the deeper question for me isn't can atheists be moral. That's actually the easy question, because obviously anybody can say if they're honest with them, they can obviously say that they can. Now, to me, the harder question is what makes something objectively moral if there's no like transcendent moral authority, and a lot of the atheists that I've talked to, they usually answered that they answered that by bringing up stuff like human flourishing or minimizing suffering, individual autonomy. They talked a lot about that, and then you also heard a lot of people who like to talk about social consensus and reason, and for me, those are like all different foundations that a person can have when it comes to morality, and they use that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? That is where they pull their morality from.
So they use that for the excuses that they use for whatever they do and think.
Well, see, I don't believe I don't believe in the term atheist. I think that you replace one God for another, like an addiction. Actually,
I agree with you.
It's like I don't believe there's a true atheist belief. That's one reason why I could have even when I had my issues with believing in God, I could never call myself an atheist, because if you listen to a lot of the stuff they say, it's just not freaking logical. Like, you cannot logically call yourself an atheist and do the things that they do. You know what I mean? I could never freaking come to call myself an atheist, even in my worst days. So
We felt like
I lost my faith. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Which one?
Who? Go ahead. Who?
Robert, mute out real quick. And Robert,
Okay. I lost my faith in God when I broke my promise to God and got divorced. I made this promise that for better or for worse I was going to be married, and then I left. And I couldn't believe in God anymore because I had crossed the line. And it took me about 10 years to realize that despite the fact that I'd stopped believing in God, God hadn't stopped believing in me. And that actually there was more to the world than what I believed or how I saw it. And I don't know what God is, but I know there's something more than me. And I also question those labels that we put on people like atheist or Christian or Muslim or whatever it is you want to call people, because we go through different phases of different understandings of belief, and it doesn't change the reality of what is there, what we think. And you can get mathematical evidence for that by looking back through thousands and thousands and thousands of years of people who've done their best to live on this planet. And it seems that over and over and over it comes back to the fact that there is something more than just humans. And so, yeah, I think it's really, like you say, Roger, it's sort of having that humility to be able to say, we just don't really know. What we're doing is our best understanding right now, but in 10 years' time, we might see something differently. So can you say, I'm an atheist if I've had a bad patch?
That's actually a good way to get into the whole thing about values, because I mentioned this before when it comes to Tan. When we were doing this and we were talking about values and norms before, Tan got really, really emotional. He said some great stuff about being a father, and it was very inspirational. But we were talking about this stuff, so for me, it was kind of weird that he took that away from this conversation, because this isn't good. You know what I mean? When we're in this sense, when we're talking about norms and values, this is not a good thing. And earlier, I argued that like values aren't the same thing as facts. You know what I mean? And I argued that values can exist independent of rational explanation, and that people can become so committed to a belief that rational thought and the belief no longer occupy the same space. You know what I mean? And that was what really brought it out, where we had that conversation. Now, for me, what I should have done was, rather than claiming that values like transcend all rational explanation, I should have said values aren't simply like empirical facts. They improve judgments about what ought to be valued. You know what I mean? So science, if you look at science, it can tell us like this action produces this consequence. It can also investigate like things like this behavior increases suffering, but then comes the philosophical question: why should suffering be reduced? And that's a value judgment. So for me, I need some normative premise so that I can get from is to ought. And that's where like competing moral systems enter. You know what I mean? So you have to look at stuff like that. You have to understand what's actually going on, and you have to be careful about how you say things, because I know that like I can say things in a way that can cause people to feel all warm and fuzzy inside, when that's not the way they should be feeling. You know what I mean? So basically, suppose an atheist. Hold on. So suppose an atheist says, "I don't believe morality comes from God," and then logically you would ask, where does it come from? Now, if the answer is like human beings, I would personally ask, why should human beings agree about it? About it. You know what I mean? And so most of the time, I'm not going to say all the time. Mostly atheists say because empathy is involved, or it evolved basically over time. They love to say that. So I'm going to mute out real quick.
So they think that empathy is the building blocks of morality, because we care about each other. We try to be good.
Yeah, and they believe that it evolved over time.
Yeah, but you have to believe within something
Well, I do
of
think
that.
kindness.
Yeah, but you can believe in kindness, but if you don't have both, how far does it go then?
Go ahead, Bob Dub. I know you were on to something.
It's interesting
I know you
because
were on to something.
sorry, I was just saying, like, kindness has not always been a part of human society. And in fact, in very impoverished communities that live very close to nature, there are no concepts like kindness and beauty. The concept is survival, to get your children to live until they're adults, no matter what, whatever the means are that you use. So I don't know that I would agree that empathy is necessary for survival or for caring. But I also think that you've got a 50-50 chance that there is a God or there isn't a God. But with morality, you've got 100% chance that it's there. We live in a society where people require each other to behave to a certain set of principles. So it's almost muddying the waters to talk about morality coming from God. I mean, why does God need to be responsible for our decisions? God gave us this earth, He gave us this life, and He said, do your best, guys. Why does He need to come and get involved in every single decision we make? Surely there's a point at which we have to say, thank you, and how are we going to respond to that gift?
Well, I guess we know what He wants, but it's the thing of we have to comprehend after a while, not to, like you said, Bob, and we have to pick up the ball ourselves and go far, deal with what we have and comprehend. And everyone that can comprehend the whole idea of that would be willing to help. Like if other people need help for whatever, pick up a bag or whatever, that they might feel the urge to be willing to do that for them because it's the right thing, that they know it's the right thing to do and they know how to do it.
Okay, so that's
I
good.
agree with that.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so now this is
agree. Sorry.
This is something that I stuck out to me because of the whole point of evolution. Now, I ended up getting in huge conversations with a lot of atheists concerning this back when the days were good on Facebook. But you can't do that no more. You'll get in trouble. You do that stuff on Facebook. Just be careful if you're listening to this. But the thing that really stuck to me was the whole evolution thing. Okay, so I would always ask, does evolution make something morally right, or does it merely explain why we behave a certain way? And I think that that's an important distinction that people need to make, you know what I mean? Because evolution can potentially explain why humans develop cooperative behaviors, don't get me wrong, okay? But explaining why we have a moral instinct isn't automatically the same thing as establishing what is morally right, you know? So, and I had to go through my old atheist material and make exactly this kind of argument whenever I went through it, because it challenges like the claim that evolution itself was basically established as slavery or wrong, or slavery is wrong, or like equality is like morally correct. That's the thing I think is really going on today, where people they don't understand that, you know what I mean? Slavery, is something a lot of people put with evolution, and they try to establish that slavery is wrong, and then they turn around at the same time and say equality is like morally correct. and I just personally think that that's a really really bad direction that people are taking, and they're doing it today. It's just like it's a freaking stumbling block that they're just continuing to fall over. You know what I mean? And that none of that is actually true whatsoever. You know, so I mean that's my take on it.
That's a very interesting point, Roger. It is a very interesting point.
Well, yeah, but one other thing, I've noticed, when the people, when it comes to right and wrong, and some people have gotten to where they're more intelligent now about things, about how they handle situations. Okay, certain people will look and say, okay, I know what this guy, he's a very troubled person, and if I respond, how it's going to go for me. I'm looking at it like, okay, I can go do what he wants me to evoke him, but then I'm the one that's going to be in trouble. So what best way is to eliminate both things is by not stepping into the situation that he creates for me, mentally or physically. Because if it comes down to it, he's going to want to escalate it even to violence. That's what I'm referring to. Whereas people progress and get more intelligent, have to be more aware of situations without going to violence or bringing up because of color or whatever, or race, if you're gay or not, just by being smart.
Now I can actually bring that a lot closer to something that I think would be interesting. Okay, because I've had this for a while on my things. Okay, now there was something that I wrote down in my blog a long time ago that I freaking forgot about, and I went over it recently, and it's kind of imagine like a society where most people believe that human dignity is sacred because every human being is created by God. Okay, so you can imagine a world like that. Okay, now imagine another society where most people believe that human dignity is important because human beings are intrinsically that they have intrinsic worth regardless of any God. Okay, they might like produce similar laws. They might both prohibit murder. They might both oppose slavery. They might both protect families, and they might value honesty. Things like that. But they're given different explanations for why those things are valuable to them. Okay, and society is interested in what happens when those beliefs become embedded in institutions. And that brings us back to our original question again. How do values become norms? And Mark keeps quiet all the time because he doesn't want to say this, but he's big on talking about the difference between value and worth.
Yeah.
And one day I will freaking have him openly say what's on his mind. What's the difference?
Okay. Yeah. Do on another show.
You know what the answer is. I know what the answer is, dude. What's the difference between value and worth?
What's the difference between value and worth? Value is something that is something that is valued at. Worth is what is worth to somebody. This cup could be valued at £2 or $2.50, and it might be worth because I use it to drink out of. I don't know, thousands of pounds or dollars.
Yeah, but how much do you put as value for that cup compared to anything else?
Um,
The value price. It's just what you buy. No. Listen, you don't get to choose the value of an object.
Well,
that's what you think it's worth.
Okay. Well, I'm referring to, like, if you have something else that equally value, which one would you put more value as?
No, you're getting it wrong again. Which ones do you think is worth more? Okay, see, value, worth. Value is just what is the freaking price that is on it when you go to the freaking to the shelf and see it on the store shelf. That's how much it's valued at. When you go to eBay and you buy something, the price that's on it, that's what it's valued at.
Yeah. If I keep on buying stuff from eBay myself, I think it's valued at too much, or it's worth to me at a less price, I wouldn't buy it.
Okay, but what, like this too, people have that real bad thing about they put that thing on value of someone else's life, where if they
right.
the person,
now you're actually falling in line. You're starting to understand they're putting a price tag on human life,
and
instead of what is a life worth.
Yeah.
Now you guys got really crazy, and Bob Dub was opening her mic, and I know she wanted to say something, but you rudely interrupted her. So Bob Dub, you go ahead, and we're going to mute so that it doesn't close.
Okay. Unfortunately, it's about the thing that Robert was talking about intelligence and violence. So I'm still on that old conversation. But I would argue with Robert about you need to be intelligent to reduce violence, because in dog societies, they have huge rules about who can look at who and who can stand near who. And if something goes wrong and somebody starts growling, you have to turn your back. There are lots of dog rules. Cats have 235 different facial expressions. And a lot of them are reduced at keeping everything happy within the little herd of cats, whatever you call them. So I don't believe in this excuse that human violence is a result of lack of intelligence or lack of education. I think there are creatures that don't care about being good, that don't have a moral compass in humans and in animal world. And it makes it a very strange question to think that animals have value and animals understand what things are worth to each other. For me to just answer the thing that you were saying just now, this next conversation about the difference between value and worth, I would say that worth is like Mark, you were saying, it's an emotional thing. It's got an emotional context. You have something in your heart that says, man, if I don't have this cup, I don't drink water, I die. That's it. Whereas value is more objective, more mathematical, and you can, okay. That's my 2 cents there, Roger.
Well, those were good. Those were good 2 cents. You did a good job.
Indeed, yeah.
So now, this is where we get into the more important question: what happens when religious authority declines? And I'm going to do another example, okay? So suppose there's a society that becomes increasingly secular, and you remove religious authorities from the center of public life. That doesn't mean, that like morality disappears, according to what an atheist would say. Okay, something else has to occupy the space. Is what they would tell you. That would be like humanism, perhaps liberalism. You know, it could be individual autonomy. You know, social justice, national identity. Perhaps it's like scientific rationalism, or perhaps some combination of all of them together. You know what I mean? So if religious institutions lose influence while universities and government agencies and professional organizations or corporations and advocacy organizations gain influence, that's when the question becomes, are we eliminating more authority, or are we transferring moral authority? And I think that's a much stronger question than saying atheism or atheists or socialists. You know what I mean? Which that's what I always used to say. That was one of my bad faults. Like back when I first started doing it, everybody, socialism was the center of every freaking problem. Now it's only sociology. Now I've pinned it down to sociology.
Okay.
So go ahead, Bob Dub. What you gonna say?
Sorry, Mark, you were going to say something? I thought Mark was going to say something.
No, carry on.
I think that the church has failed because it became very arrogant and certain in its beliefs. And it started saying that God was doing this, God was doing that, and God was doing the next thing. And nobody knows what God is doing. And the people came along with huge, big questions. And the church, the institution of the church, could not answer those questions except to tell people to shut up and believe. And I do believe that there is a new attitude towards religion building in the world, particularly among the young people. And I think that we need to remember all the time, we really do not know what are in the other dimensions. We do not understand the rules of love. We do not understand quantum physics. We think we're great because we're humans, but actually we're pretty dumb. And if you have priests that are able to hold that space for people and allow us to live with that sort of uncertainty, instead of priests who beat people up with fantasy, then I think that's a really moral, a really justified religion. And I am hoping a lot that a lot of these talks that are happening on the internet about religion are going to usher in a different type of, well, I call them priests, but faith workers. Because everybody has crises in their life. Everybody has times when the carpet is pulled out from underneath them, or a great big trauma comes and gets them, or have to face a grief that they're not ready for. And you need wise, caring, compassionate people to shepherd you through those terrible, terrible times. And then you need that person to be able to let you go and say, well done, you made it through. And the gratitude that you feel as a result of that process often results in you putting back into the institutions. But basically, the church is there for people who are struggling. And the people that aren't struggling are the ones that do the supporting. And I think that we need to hold that understanding that this is for people, but about... It's a very delicate balance, and I feel that it takes very dedicated, committed people to be able to stand in that priestly role and mediate compassion and love and moral authority and goodness to the wounded.
Okay, so here is my take on it. You know, like when people reject one source of moral authority, they still have to answer the question of where their moral standards come from, and that's universal. That means religious people have to answer it, atheists have to answer it, people who are humanists also have to answer it. Politicians and political ideology, they have to answer it too. You know, that goes all the way into government as well. They have to answer that same question, and you know, society as a whole basically has to answer, you know, where does it come from? And a lot of this is something that goes into what I used to refer to as the good guys criticism. You know, I mention that sometimes. I used to mention it a lot. It fits in perfectly here, okay? This is a place where I think that it agrees with my concern about earlier treatment when it comes to how I handled these vlogs and stuff when I first started, you know. What I know today is like we shouldn't say like religious organizations are bad, but we also shouldn't say that religious organizations are good either. All right. We shouldn't say that atheist organizations are bad, and the same goes with them too. We shouldn't say that atheist organizations are good as well. You know what I mean? Just like I don't think we should say, you know, activist organizations are bad, which is a really hard thing to freaking do, you know. But we shouldn't say that activist organizations are good. Their organizations pursue objectives. Some objectives may be admirable, and some may be destructive, you know. Some may be both, depending on the consequences. And the same applies to government. You know, the same applies to the universities. The same applies to corporations, as well as churches. You know, intent isn't enough. We need to examine what they actually advocate and what their actions produce. You know, that's the thing that I think that needs to really be looked at, you know, when it comes to, especially with a lot of the problems that we have in the world today. So besides that, there's also like a contradiction in the atheist debate that they had with me that I also wanted to bring up. My material that I had previously, it says, has an atheist saying that we don't believe in God, but we still try to believe morally because we try to live morally because we want to live, or we want to leave the world better. And that always stuck out to me. Okay, and that is that basically is a perfectly coherent position as a statement of like personal ethics. But notice what's happened. You know what I mean? Like the atheist has eliminated values altogether. They've affirmed values.
They've affirmed values.
They've simply just rejected one explanation for their origin, and I think that's really, really crucial, because our discussion isn't actually about whether atheists have values, because they do, you know. The discussion is really about where do those values come from, and why should they be considered binding, and who gets to turn them into social norms, you know. And now we're back to sociology. It's one big sociology lesson. And we've been socially engineered to think that way. You know? I know you had your mic open, so go ahead and talk. Sorry, Bob. I just really had to finish that.
Did I have? I didn't know I did. No, I think that it's fascinating that you say that atheists say they want to leave the world a better place. Where does that desire come from? The interesting thing for me about God, the debate about God, is that I can trace it back to that Bible line that says that people were created in the image of God. And the only thing I really believe about God is that God is some sort of creative force, some sort of instigator. And so the only thing that I can believe about being created in the image of God is that we are made to be creative people. And the opposite of being creative is being destructive. And so I can judge values and situations in these two very basic little pools. Does this action that I'm going to take bring something better? Or does it take away? Does it destroy? And so for me, because I've made that God that definition, God does exist for me. And so it's very interesting to look or to listen to hear what you say about atheists saying we want to leave the world a better place. That instantly says they have a creative instinct in them, which instantly proves to me, my confirmation bias. Well, then, that's got to be that God thing that I keep on saying is there, because it's pushing even atheists to live according to this principle of create goodness. So when we have discussions like this, I just keep on defaulting to, I believe there is a force that is probably sentient, that occupies everything and pushes things towards creation, creativity, beauty, happiness, goodness. That side appears to be a dominant force. And that's not to say that the other doesn't exist. But statistically, Roger, it's math, if you like, to try and talk about a second force when you can't mathematically prove a first force. We can't prove there's any God. We can't prove there's an absolute goodness and an absolute truth and an absolute justice. And so it's kind of ridiculous to start talking about an evil force when we haven't even proved that there's a good force. So yeah, basically I'm just sitting here with this idea that you say that atheists want to leave the world a better place, and I'm thinking, well, why would they want to leave the world a better place unless there was a God force in them inspiring them to think that way? So that's kind of a long and a bit rambly explanation to what I think is the motivation for that desire to do good in the world.
Well, sometimes we need long, drawn-out explanations because that was good, Bob. Don't think it wasn't. And the thing that really stuck out to me though about most of that is I think the whole "Leave the World a Better Place" is just poppycock because I knew the guy. It's like and this is a slogan that a lot of atheists have put out. Just putting it up. But let me hold up before you go further, Robert. Let me tell you what really stuck out to me. The thing is that the atheists, when they say this, they haven't eliminated values. They just affirmed values. They've actually affirmed values. That's what I was saying. You know what I mean? It's like, and they've just simply rejected one explanation for their for the origin of values. You know what I mean? And that's very crucial. That's what you got. Is there a difference between values and believing in God? That's what I think a lot of people have a hard time with understanding. Can they freaking create a freaking grocery store over-the-counter value for God? God is valued like this, you know what I mean? So they can turn around and they can create freaking institutions and government freaking to replace God. That's the thing that has always been one of the concerns that I have. Now, when it comes to this point in the conversation, this gives us like an even bigger framework. Okay, now we have like 4 layers. You have the first layer, which is religion, and that asks the question, where does morality come from? Does it come from God, scripture, tradition, religious community? Then you have layer 2, which is the secular philosophy, and that's where does morality come from without God? Is it from reason, human flourishing, empathy, autonomy, social consensus, and humanism? Or is it layer 3, which is sociology, which is the thing that I'm not supposed to call evil? How does those values become social norms? And that's usually through family, education, religion, media, institutions. You have peer groups, you've got culture, and then finally the 4th freaking one, which is the government. Okay, what happens when those norms become law? That brings regulation, legislation, courts, administrative agencies, enforcement, and now we've reached the point where private belief becomes public authority, and that's where your entire discussion is changed. Okay, that's actually where we're going. That's exactly where we're heading. So in the end, what I'm basically saying is, who gets to define the good? You know what I mean? Human beings have always needed answers to questions like what is good, what is evil, what is normal, what's acceptable, and what's forbidden. Religion provided one set of answers, philosophy provided others, political ideologies, they provided others. You've got sociology that studies how those answers become embedded in society and shit, and then you have institutions that transmit them, organizations that advocate them, educational systems that teach them. Then you have like the whole cultural normal thing, you know what I mean? Normalize them. You got to normalize them. Now you got normalize. And eventually government can turn some of them into a law. And that leaves us with the question that has been sitting underneath everything that I've written for all these years. And that is, when one source of authority loses influence, who takes its place? And perhaps the even more important question: did we consciously choose the new authority, or did we simply inherit it from the institution that replaced the old one?
No, it can come. It can come from a different source completely to take over your source completely, and without you knowing it, that source is smart enough to know what to do and how to do to where it takes your civilization and it works within, makes your civilization work. They match the two together like other countries during a long time ago. And as well, you were saying about the okay, it was shown, proven long before with any rules or laws or anything about rights and about how people respond to things. Like they have proven that cavemen or hominids, they call them. There were 7 different types of hominids in the world, but during all 7 of them, they were working together with one another, hunting as well. And when they would die, they would literally bury them in the ground. So that there shows compassion and working together.
And before you go further, I do want to compliment you and tell you I'm proud of you for remembering the word hominid, because that's a hard thing for you to do. So I'm really glad you did that. So
yeah,
sorry about that.
But if they can work with all that, with food, collecting food, working with each other without all walls or anything else, it's the thing that you know the people, you feel comfortable. You have to feel comfortable within your community to feel like you can do this with them instead of without them. And when it comes to danger, they won't leave one of their own behind. So that's why I can put it.
Now you also have to remember we were discussing this earlier. Bob Dub and especially brought it up when it comes to that kind of mentality, you have to believe that you have to understand too. The hominids were actually freaking doing things that were not considered ethical. Okay, like they didn't distinguish between murder and freaking killing. Okay, like if they had to eat another human or another hominid creature, they saw no problem with that. Some of them, I think the Homo sapiens were the ones who actually stopped eating their own. I'm pretty sure that's what I'm not. Bob Dub's better at that than I am, but I think it's the Homo sapiens. But before that, they freaking had no problems with it. You know what I mean? So they didn't distinguish that. They had that animal instinct. And they followed rules, but that doesn't necessarily mean good or bad. It doesn't mean having values or morals or having or feeling that freaking life was worth something. You know what I mean? And I like to use the term external thinking. Okay, when you look at an animal, most animals think they think externally. They don't think internally. They don't think inward. You know what I mean? Like most of an animal, when they get up and they do stuff in the day, it's usually about what they need and what they need to survive. They don't read too much into how much they care about somebody. No, it's like when you have a cat and the cat comes up and sits next to you and wants you to rub its belly. They're not doing that because they love you. They're doing that because they want you to rub their belly. You love them, but all they want is their belly rubbed. You know what I mean? So you got to kind of understand the difference there. Now a cat, when they purr and they hug up next to you, that's their show of affection. But you have to understand that. So that very seldomly happens because cats cats don't like us too
Not
much.
And that very seldomly happens because cats don't like us too much.
You made an interesting point earlier, Roger, where you were saying how do things transfer from people to people? And there is development of thought over time. And there's a very interesting thing that happened over in, is it Japan? I think it's the place where they have those monkeys that in the snow they go and they sit in the hot thermal baths to warm up. Macaques or something. Anywho, one of these groups of monkeys on the, I think it was the Japanese mainland, they one day by mistake, one of the monkeys knocked some eggs into the water, into this hot water where they were all sitting sheltering from the snow, and they discovered that they made hard-boiled eggs. And then they were delighted. They went around collecting eggs, making hard-boiled eggs. This was their new game. They were making hard-boiled. And then about 6 months later, on another island, they discovered that there was another group of monkeys who had also discovered doing that. Like for hundreds of years, these monkeys didn't know about hard-boiled eggs. And then two separate groups on two separate islands with no way to communicate with each other both discovered hard-boiled eggs within a few months of each other. So when Minds Gaming talks about those quantum things in our heads that send signals all the time, it's a very interesting thing. We might be transmitting knowledge to each other at a quantum level through these tubule things in our brains. And it may be that memes aren't pictures with writing on them, but it may be that memes are some sort of quantum communication that share higher states. And the interesting thing is, why did some groups of monkeys share that hard-boiled egg secrets with each other, and some groups were left out of the loop? So yeah, there we go. I thought that I'd give you that interesting and bizarre and random side quest there.
We're used to that. It's a common thing around here. We come up with some interesting stuff, So before we end this, we're going to have some words from the mighty Lord Edworthy, because he just been sitting around being quiet all the time. Everybody's starting to kind of worry about you, man.
I've been listening mainly, so
for a long time though. I think August has whooped your butt, to be honest, because you've been like in your own universe and you haven't been really talking very much.
I've been listening.
So what's your final thoughts? Because we've actually had a pretty decent show. I think we need about 7 minutes to fill. So
if there's God or if there isn't a God, I know I'm still alive at the moment. So yeah, if there's a God, there's God. If there isn't a God, there is. Then the state is the religion.
I got one. Okay, for each country, for the church, and for all of the churches, how do people, best way I can put it, is represent what they believe in as God? Okay, because everyone has this ideal that different countries they believe in certain things. Well, like I found out recently in Africa, this one church, this is what I found out. The Bible of the U.S. church has 66 books. Africa, this one church has 88 more. And people, I guess they
Yeah,
They don't want-
you're discussing the Church of Ethiopia.
oh well
They have
the thing
88.
of it, okay. Well, the thing of it is, they all need to, well, with that, everyone has their own things about Christ. That's fine, but it's all on the way we handle that situation, the mind of that, where we shouldn't be going to say one's better than the other. Just knowing that we all believe in the same thing should be good enough. You know.
Well, for me personally, I believe that this is social engineering, and I believe that even though I don't follow the whole thing about religions, I do see that freaking religions are slowly being replaced by freaking government. I'm sorry, but I do see it. They want to phase out religion, and they want to make it into freaking they want to make it to where people are saying the Pledge of Allegiance instead of going and reading a Bible or freaking praying. Okay, they want you to believe in God, government, and freaking and so forth. You know what I mean? And I just
forget the apple pie.
Yeah, well, the apple pie is true, though. There's nothing wrong with the apple pie. Like, if you have a problem with apple pie, you have a problem with humanity, dude, because I don't care where you live in this world. If you don't like apple pie, there's something wrong with you. I'm just going to put it out there. I mean, and I always hear you talking about that with the apple pie, man. You got to remember, apple pie got famous in England
I always
first.
hear you talking about that with the apple pie, man. You got to remember, apple pie got famous in England first. Yeah.
Garden of Eden, bro.
Right.
Yeah.
They were after the apples back then. That's a joke.
We know. Okay, so we have 3 minutes left. What I want to do is spend those 3 minutes getting socials. So let's get you first, Bob Dub, so that we can get the easy ones after you. So how can people reach you?
How can people reach you?
Oh, mine's really easy at the moment. The only place I'm really hanging out at the moment is in the Swarm space. So that's swarm-space.lovable.app. If you'd like to reach me, you can drop me a message in there. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you very much. Now, how can people reach you, Mr. Edworthy?
Just really one site, minds.com. The account's Medworthy. The username Medworthy.
Okay, so you can find Robert at his YouTube channel, Robert Hansen. You can also find him where you can reach me. You can reach him where you can reach me. I am on minds.com as well at Roger_Hansen. I am on Discord at the Wonderful World of Weirdness, as well as on Teams and Element Matrix at my Hangout, Roger's Hangout, which the one on Teams is a community, the one on Element Matrix is a chat. You can find me there as well. Now, if you want to watch this again, edited and cleaned up, you can check that out on Minds. It's got a group called the Praetorian on there where you can actually join and be a part of the community and have conversation. And when we do these streams, you can click on the Jitsi, come right in and have these talks with us. So you're more than welcome to do that. Now, other than Minds, we have the YouTube channel and the Rumble channel. That is the Praetorian, which we will be posting the edited videos on for this. And if you want to check us out on Kick, or if you want to check us out on Instagram, you have to check us out on Kick as Roger_Hansen, and on Kick, Infamous 1969. We would like to thank everybody for being on the panel. Thank you guys for being here. This was a great conversation. And I would like to thank anybody who is watching or who will watch this later on. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. Give us feedback in the comment section, not just up there in that chat section. If you give us comments in the comment section, it also helps us on the channel and the platform. Shows the platform that the algorithm or that the channel's active. So it's very important, and a lot of people forget about that. But if you do that, we would greatly appreciate it. We will do our best to answer each and every comment. So with that being said, I'd like to say thank you for watching. Have a good night, evening, day, morning, whatever time of the day it is for you, and we will talk to you later.